guys, Adam here again. What I wanted to quickly do in this video is just explain a little bit, a couple of questions I've been asked, a little bit about how I go about sort of writing and my kind of workflow when I'm writing. So yeah, what I'm going to do is now just quickly focus in on the computer screen, and I'll show you kind of how I'm working and how I've been writing this album. Focus, focus. There we have it, not too bad in the grand scheme of things. So this is a track, it's probably going to be the last track on the album. It's called Turning Point. Sorry for these strange blurry lines going on here, I'm not sure what that is, that's something the camera's doing. Try and bear with it. This is a track called Turning Point, which at the moment is the last track on the album. You've heard us play little bits and pieces of it. And this program I'm using here is Guitar Pro 6. I bought this when I first came out. I've used Guitar Pro 5 before that for years. Big fan of Guitar Pro. Before I could read sheet music, before I could read music notation, Western notation, I did everything in tab. And that's just kind of a way, even though I can now read music, I still like to work a lot in tab. So as the Man in the Telescope album, that was all done mainly inside Sibelius, using mainly sort of standard notation. I went back, because originally this album I went back to doing a lot more guitar bass and a lot more writing at the guitar. So I went back to using Guitar Pro. So I use Guitar Pro for probably 90% of this album. There's still some stuff written in Sibelius because some of the more complex string arrangements and orchestral parts and some of the piano parts required using Sibelius really, as opposed to this, because I don't like the standard notation editor in Guitar Pro at all. It's fiddly and it's awkward to use. But likewise in Sibelius I don't really like the tab editor, so I wish they'd get together and bloody combine or something, make my life easier. Pay for that program. So I'll play you a little bit of it. So I'm not bothered about sound quality that much in Guitar Pro, but I do use the realistic sound engine, as they call it, at RSE, just so I get a little bit more of a feel rather than what MIDI would give you. Yeah, so let's just, I don't know, let's share a little bit of Turning Points. So obviously it sounds nothing really like the recorded audio and the recorded album is going to sound like. Important to note as well, there'll be kind of string parts and stuff going on and stuff like that. I tend not to put them in the Guitar Pro file too much, and you don't really need them. I'm mainly focused on the drums, the guitars, and little bits of sort of pads and stuff just to fill out the sound while I'm working on it. It makes it a little more fun to jam along with. So it works absolutely great, so that's why I'm using it. You may recognise this riff from a video I posted a few weeks back. So that's basically it. So I use Guitar Pro to do the bulk of the work on this album especially, and day to day when I'm writing that, I write a new riff or a new lick or whatever pretty much every day, just by chance, improvising and jamming. And I'll always use Guitar Pro to notate that out because it's quick, it's reliable, I don't have many problems with it. I've used it for years. So yeah, that's what I'm using Guitar Pro for, and the bulk of the composition for this album was spent with the guitar in my hand, sat here in front of Guitar Pro, notating it out as I wrote it. A lot of this album, guitar parts especially, in fact I'd say probably 95% of the guitar parts on this album were actually written with the guitar in my hand. So some of the parts on Cosmology and some of the parts on, a lot of the parts on Man in the Telescope actually, which may or may not be getting released, a lot of the parts on Man in the Telescope, probably 50% of it was spent actually writing, rather than sort of on the guitar. It was actually using just the computer. Whereas this album I went back to what sort of I originally came from, writing heavy metal riffs and lead parts and melodies on the guitar, and then using my theoretical knowledge in the computer to sort of tweak them if I wanted to experiment with slightly different sounds. As ever guys, thanks for tuning in. I hope that answered a few questions on kind of my workflow, what I'm using Guitar Pro what I'm using Guitar Pro 6 for. Absolutely massive fan of Guitar Pro. Until next time guys, take it easy.